This show contains general information about legal matters. This information is not advice and should not be treated as such. If you have any specific questions about any legal matter, you should consult your attorney or other professional legal services provider. Be advised that while Cheapskate is a lawyer, he is not your lawyer. Also, Jimmy Franks is an idiot, and you should never take his advice.
You're listening to Song Crimes, where we start every episode with a legal pun. I'm professional idiot Jimmy Franks, and along with real-life attorney Cheapskate, we explore the statements and confessions made by songwriters in popular music and pass judgment on those who choose to operate outside the law. Court is now in session. So we're returning back to criminal court today with Jimmy Franks and Cheapskate. We're going to start with Steve Miller's The Joker.
I'm a joker, I'm a smoker, I'm a midnight toker.
He is doing a lot of stuff in this song. So
he is inspiring all your drunk friends to sing along.
He's got a lot of aliases in this one. Some people call him a space cowboy. Some call him a gangster of love. Some people call him Maurice.
Woo-woo.
For whatever reason, because he speaks of the pompous of love. Tell me a little bit about false ID or misrepresentation, because he's going around town. He's known by several different names. If somebody needed to contact him for a legal reason, they may have a hard time tracking him down.
Yeah, this is generally not going to be illegal. I mean, you're not going to get arrested for going by Jimmy Franks, which is not your real name, and I'm not going to get arrested for going by Cheapskate, which is not my real name.
Okay.
The only time you might get in trouble for this is if you are using your false identification to get something you aren't entitled to. Some of you may remember for a while there was this Stolen Valor Act that said it was illegal to pretend to be a veteran of the military. And that got struck down by the Supreme Court saying, look, if all you're doing is saying I used to be in the Army, big whoop, you've got a free speech right to do that even if it's wrong. So they changed it to say, okay, it's now illegal to pretend to be a military veteran if you're doing it to gain some sort of benefit like veterans benefits or if you're stopping at Wall Drug and expecting to get free coffee. There's also the issue of whether he's pretending to be any particular Maurice. If he's pretending to be a Maurice who is a real person and is like applying for a credit card under Maurice's name, then yeah, he's gonna get in trouble. That's identity theft. Yeah, and fun fact, he might actually be able to cash a check written out to the Space Cowboy, even if that's not his if that's not his lawful name, but he can show that he's generally known in the public by that name. He comes into the bank and says, "Yeah, I'm the Space Cowboy." It's like, you are the Space Cowboy. Take your money.
I don't think he's cashing a lot of checks. He might be getting a lot of bills under Space Cowboy if all he does all day is hang out and busk and smokes weed.
Yeah, I think very few people pay buskers by check anymore.
That's true.
I'm sure.
He's probably got it.
Yeah, I'm sure.
He's got a square reader.
Yeah.
So in the chorus, he sings, "'Cause I'm a picker, I'm a grinner, I'm a lover, and I'm a sinner. I play my music in the sun." So he's busking. He's loitering in public. He's playing his music in the sun. And I don't know, did we get a jurisdiction on this?
I don't think we have one, so we're going to go with where Steve Miller is from, which is San Francisco, California. As we have discussed before on this podcast, generally everything in California is illegal unless specified otherwise. In California, the busking rules are city by city. So I went and I checked the San Francisco city code, and it looks like there you only need a permit to do it if you're using an amplifier.
Okay.
So
if he's unplugged, if he's acoustic, he gets a pass.
Right, he's fine. All
right. Well, now it gets more complicated in the next lines. Quote, "I'm a joker, I'm a smoker, I'm a midnight toker." So public smoking, and if he's smoking marijuana at midnight or any time, day or night, if he's outside. I don't know what the law is for smoking in public in California. In Washington State, for example, you can't smoke within 25 feet of a doorway or a window.
Yeah, and the marijuana stuff is incredibly complicated and would take long posts for me to explain what's going on between state law and federal law here.
Sure.
California, public intoxication is charged as disorderly conduct, and it applies if you are too intoxicated to take care of yourself or if you are intoxicated and wander out into a public right-of-way. So if he is midnight toking and then he staggers onto the freeway, then you can get him for disorderly conduct.
So then it takes a turn. It takes a turn in the refrain. You're the cutest thing that I ever did see. I really love your peaches. Want to shake your tree. Lovey-dovey all the time. Ooh, baby, I'll sure show you a good time. So assuming he's out, he's busking in the sun, smoking weed. Now he's accosting passersby and trying to negotiate some kind of romantic relationship. Does this fall under sexual harassment? The come on, baby, now I'll show you a good time?
Sexual harassment generally isn't a crime. It's generally cause for you to lose your job. Doesn't sound like Steve is portraying a character who is employed at the moment.
Okay.
So if he is proposing to have sex in public, then he's in trouble because sex in public is that also falls under the disorderly conduct statute.
Okay, so he's really just catcalling at this point.
Right, which is a thing that he should not be doing, but not illegal.
Okay. It's
awful but lawful.
Let's review the charges here. Guilty or not guilty on false ID?
It's hard to say without more information.
And then for busking and loitering?
Not guilty.
What about the public intoxication?
Again, hard to say. He's not stoned enough that he's stopped singing, so he seems to me like he's still in condition to take care of himself, so this is probably not guilty here.
And we've established that he's not guilty of sexual harassment or really anything other than being a jerk.
Right.
Well, the court recommends that Steve Miller visit his local job source center and consider maybe getting some gainful employment and playing some music on the weekends in the sun.
That's a good call, and I would sentence him to work with the people at Equifax to teach them about what happens when you're the victim of identity theft.
And now we review the case of the people versus Pat Benatar. Hit me with your best shot.
Hit me with your best shot. Fire away.
This song is violent.
Oh yeah, this is like the Iron Maiden song of Pat Benatar songs.
Doesn't specify a gender, but she's speaking to this other person. We'll just say John Doe. Well, you're a real tough cookie with a long history of breaking little hearts like the one in me. And because rule number one of song crimes is we divorce the lyrics from the music, we take them literally, and then take them to their absurd extreme. Let's parse that out. Of breaking little hearts like the one in me. Right out of the gate, we're talking about organ injury.
Yeah, and in the next couple of lines, it's that's okay, let's see how you do it. Put up your dukes, let's get down to it. So it looks like she's calling upon him to do that Temple of Doom Kali Ma bit.
She is throwing down the gauntlet, challenging this John Doe to a street fight, maybe to avenge those hearts that this person has broken. Like all of the people that this person's killed with their Fist of the North Star punch, she is now facing off against the boss and saying, let's fight, let's get this over with. I'm taking you down.
Pat Benatar, anime hero.
Yeah. So hit me with your best shot, cheapskate. Street fighting, assuming this isn't a metaphorical fight. What's going on here? She's starting fights with people in the street.
Right. So a fight in New York, where Pat is from, is going to be third-degree assault if it doesn't involve weapons, cops, children, or judges.
What if it was a judge?
If it was a judge, it would be a higher degree.
Well, let's say it is a judge. Judge John Doe.
Yeah, I'm almost envisioning right now Pat Benatar getting in a street fight with Judge Judy.
We don't know, so let's just pick that and run with it. So Pat Benatar facing off against Judge Judy. Pat Benatar is not a stranger to this type of behavior. Later in the song, she says, "Before I put another notch in my lipstick case, you'd better make sure you put me in my place." I'm a little confused with that line, as it sounds like she wants to get hit. Maybe she wants to be defeated. And earlier in the song, too, she says, "That's okay, see if I care, knock me down. It's all in vain. I get right back on my feet again." Which, again, goes back into my theory that Pat Benatar is some kind of supernatural fighter who travels the land in her free time when she's not on tour, avenging the wrongs that other people have committed because she's invulnerable to physical injury.
Yeah, what was that music video where she was the World War II fighter pilot? She may be playing that same character here.
I don't know. She is an immortal. We've cracked the case, cheapskate. Pat Benatar is an immortal fighter.
This goes beyond music.
Again, going back to the inciting violence, she's taunting Judge Judy. What happens if someone demands you hit them, if you encounter them on the street and they're like, hey, come on, hit me with your best shot. Hit me. Go ahead, hit me.
All right, a couple of things going on here. In New York, there is an incitement to riot law. That comes into effect when you're urging 10 or more people to engage in, quote, tumultuous and violent conduct of a kind likely to create public alarm. So if she's up against Judge Judy and every other TV judge assembled around her,
come on, Wapner,
then that might go into effect. There's also unlawful assembly, which is assembling with 4 or more persons for the purpose of engaging in tumultuous and violent conduct, blah, blah, blah. So if that's a tag team matchup, then that's going to be unlawful assembly. So for Judge Judy or whoever else she is trying to start the fight with, the fact that Pat Benatar is saying, please hit me, is not a defense to an assault charge. You cannot consent to get beaten up. Most of the cases that are about this involve dominatrixes.
Well, it sounds like Pat wouldn't get beat up because she is an immortal fighting hero. Or possibly has some mental health issues.
Yeah, immortal fighting heroes generally don't find themselves in court for one reason or another.
So, guilty or not guilty? She's not guilty of inciting violence or starting a riot.
Not likely. It doesn't sound like she's addressing the plural you here. Though maybe we should hear the Spanish version of the song to be sure.
So, just in general public disturbance, do we have her on anything?
I think we've got her on assault as soon as this fight takes place. And again, if it's Judge Judy, it's a big deal. If it's against John Doe, less of a big deal. And, of course, there's always the option that Pat, when we weren't looking, went out and got a combat sport license from the New York State Athletic Commission, in which case we wouldn't be able to charge her with anything.
I sentenced Pat Benatar to joining the ranks of the UFC to put those immortal fighting skills to good use and for the entertainment of many.
And I sentenced Pat to stop dealing with real tough cookies and switch to soft batch instead.
And lastly, a song, I believe this was Bob Seger's first hit, Ramblin' Gamblin' Man.
Among the best of the 60s and 70s songs about ramblin' and or gambling.
There were many, weren't there? I forgot.
Oh, yeah.
At least 3 I can think of. So he tells a tale of kind of a rough upbringing coming from circumstances, but seems to maintain a positive outlook. Starts out with him being born lonely down by the riverside of somewhere in Michigan, I'm presuming.
Yep.
Back to Michigan again. He learned to spin fortune wheels and throw dice. He's working at a casino. He's operating a casino. He's gambling, but he's underage. So what can we intuit from Michigan state law about being a kid and gambling?
So Michigan's allowed casino gambling since 1996, well after this song came out. But assuming it has been time warped to the present, if you work in a position at a casino in Michigan that handles money, then you need to have a license from the Michigan Gaming Control Board, and all the licensed positions require you to be at least 21. Anybody who doesn't handle money, so if he's just the coat check guy, he's got to be at least 18. So it looks to me like he's in violation of Michigan law, assuming he is at one of the casinos regulated by the state of Michigan. If he is at a tribal casino, there's a whole different set of rules. I don't know if any of them allow kids to work in dealer positions. I doubt it.
Sure, that would be weird. Do we know anything about unregulated casinos? If he's running Little Bob's Casino out of his tree house, does the Gambling Commission crack down on you, or do they just send the cops over and break up the joint?
It's more likely that the police would get involved, and that there's the criminal gaming statute, and then it says the exception is it's not a crime if you're doing it under Gaming Commission rules. Presumably after he gets convicted of this, his chances of ever getting a license from the Gaming Control Board to handle one of these positions are shot.
So the next line is he was just 13 when he had to leave home. So he's having a rough go of things. It's no wonder that he went on to practice his night moves in weird places. Clearly has a lot of trauma and a lot of issues he's got to work through.
Yeah.
So
maybe he gambled his parents' home away.
Can you kick a 13-year-old out of the house?
No. Michigan does allow minors to petition for emancipation, which is to be treated like an adult, but you have to be at least 16 to do it. At age 13, not a chance. And assuming he comes along, he's now 16, and the court finds out that he's living on his own and he wants to file a petition. The court goes and they appoint a guardian ad litem who will go and they'll interview some people, they'll review records, they'll make a recommendation to the court for what should happen to little Bob. I'll add here that most states allow volunteers to be guardians ad litem, even if they don't have formal legal or therapeutic training. So if that's something that you're interested in doing to give back to your community, you should look into it.
Some of his other activities, after he's moved out of the house, has become a card sharp or some kind of croupier.
A dice sharp?
He's branching out. He's got some other side hustles, it sounds like. I ain't good looking, but I ain't shy. Ain't afraid to look a girl in the eye. I hope you got money. Sure gonna need some. Ain't gonna run on lovin', and I got to run. And maybe it's a stretch, but I think you could interpret those phrases as perhaps he's a gigolo. He's a 13-year-old gigolo in Michigan, and that just doesn't seem right.
In Michigan, prostitution is when a person, quote, accosts, solicits, or invites another person in a public place or in or from a building or vehicle by word, gesture, or other means to do any lewd or immoral act in exchange for money. It sounds like he might be doing that here.
It says if you need some lovin' and you need it right away, just take a little time out and maybe I'll stay. He's advertising.
Right. The wrinkle of it is, though, the Michigan statute only applies to people who are 16 or older. So if he's still under 16 here, he's not going to be charged with prostitution.
That's not to say that it's if you're under 16, go for it.
Oh, hell no.
Okay. Let's be clear on that point.
Yeah, we said at the beginning of the podcast, don't rely on anything I say. Rely on this. do not do this. The theory behind this is that if somebody is under 16 and is having sex for money, it's probably because they've been trafficked or they're being coerced. So the person you would want to punish is the one who is forcing them to do this.
Let's look at the charges on underage prostitution. That's not really a charge in Michigan, so not guilty on that, although any of his Johns or his clients would be on the hook for sure.
Yes.
Child abandonment by his parents. Hard to say.
Yeah, I mean, we don't know if his parents are even alive at this point.
Maybe he left by choice. They were a loving family. They just couldn't get on board with his gambling. We don't know.
Yeah.
But definitely we got him for underage gambling or operating or working in a casino under the age of 18.
Right. It sounds like he's a guy who wants to spend his life on the move and he wants to be involved with gaming. So I sentence him to work as a roving consultant for a gaming corporation, perhaps traveling between the United States and Macau and consulting in other nations.
And because Mr. Seger has such deep experience in the entertainment and maybe matchmaking industry, I sentence Bob Seger to be the spokesperson for eHarmony, where he can tell people how to meet somebody new and get some lovin' right away. Thanks to our announcer, Deb Slater. If there's a song you'd like us to feature, you can send your song ideas to songcrimes@gmail.com. And if you like the songs you hear, buy them on iTunes, or even better, support your local independent music store. And if you like the rest of the show, please subscribe, rate, review, and tell people to listen to it. And as always, don't do anything stupid. But if you do, keep your mouth shut. Court is adjourned.
Would you like to go undercover to fight discrimination? If so, you can become a fair housing tester. Find your local fair housing organization at nationalfairhousing.org.